I'm so happy to have Jordan Lydia Verla here today. Jordan, thank you so much for joining me on the show.
My pleasure, my pleasure.
I'm
Thank you
really
for
excited. Well, yes, of course, I'm excited. I heard about you because a student came in to take class from Seattle, and I'd asked him, "Is who in Seattle do you practice with and/or think is would be interesting?" And he mentioned you, and so I'm so happy to get a chance to talk to an interesting yogi. Or
Thank you. I
yogi.
appreciate that. Yeah. Yeah, he's a great student as well. And yeah, so I just actually recently moved back to Seattle. I was away for 2 years, kind of on my own little epic adventure, but had my own kind of homecoming back to Seattle after going on a big adventure for myself. And yeah, so it's been nice to be home again.
Nice. Well, I can't wait to hear about your big adventure. But before that, just like a little backstory, where were you born and raised?
I was actually born in North Ogden, Utah, and I lived in Utah until 2008, and then I moved up to the Pacific Northwest in 2008. So I have been in the Pacific Northwest for quite a while. So it is home. It's home for me. So yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
And what drew you to Pacific Northwest originally? Like just a
Oh,
change, or did you
to
have a
be totally
job?
honest. Well, I had gotten married and then I was like, I want to get out I want to get out of Utah. I don't want to be in Utah anymore. No offense, Utah. It's a gorgeous state. But when you're probably from somewhere, you're ready to kind of spread your wings a little bit. And I was ready for that. And it was a big adjustment though up here. And I don't think it was until I actually started yoga. I went to grad school up here and then I started yoga while I was in grad school. And that's when I kind of felt like my life started to open up. It was interesting because I had been pretty social and outgoing in college and stuff. And then when I moved up here, I went through this like depression and a lot of anxiety, almost to the point where it was I couldn't even get on the like public transportation. And it was really like the yoga that just like moved me out of that. And then the next thing I knew, like I felt really inspired by the yoga. And then I found myself wanting to go to a training. And next thing I knew, I was flying to Montreal, Canada to go to a backbending training called Jedi Fight Club with Isaac Garcia. So it like pushed me out of this deep funk I was in. So
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Understood. Did at this point, had you done a yoga teacher training yet, or did you?
No. So that was I started yoga in 2012. My first type of yoga was Bikram yoga. It was in like the Bikram yoga heydays when the studios, everything was 90 minutes and like 6 90-minute classes a day. And so yeah, I had a lot of depression, a lot of anxiety, and I also had some scoliosis in my spine. And I saw a poster of Joseph Insignia, who was the 2010 world champion, within like a month of me practicing. And I was like, whatever that is, whatever he's doing, I want to do that.
Mm,
So I got interested in doing yoga championships within just like a few weeks of me practicing. And my practice was not like remotely anywhere near that level. And I went to my studio owner and I told her that I was interested. And she said, if you want to do the championships, you have to go to the 84 advanced class. And she said, anyone can do it. You just got to be willing to do it. And then from that, at the time, Isaac Garcia was training a lot of competitors or champions through Jedi Fight Club. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to go to this. And I went to Montreal, completely lost all my bags. So I didn't have anything to like practice with or do anything with. So my wonderful roommate at the time let me borrow all her yoga clothes. And it was like one of the biggest challenges I think ever. And I sat in the class in the advanced classes and I watched other people do these postures that I now can do. And I just thought to myself, somehow, some way, I'm gonna do that too one
mm,
day.
right.
And it kind of
Yes.
just opened up from there.
Was
So
was Isak the one that was holding down the 84 Classic Asana classes that you were taking at that time?
No,
Would you
he
say it
was
was routine?
traveling.
Yeah.
He was traveling around. So he would train competitors. He does workshops all over the world. Within the yoga community at that time, they had the 84 classes at Bikram Yoga Everett, and Jeremy Jones used to lead them. And then um, the Kirkland studio here with Larissa Anderson. So it is kind of interesting to see throughout the time period of me practicing the last 12 years, there have been different studios and different people who have kind of held the space for it and held the lineage. Because it's a very special, it's not, I wouldn't say it used to be more exclusive because you could only be a competitor or a teacher to go. Now it's opened up a bit, but there's something still very like sacred about it, in that space. And I think it's a huge honor, in the last few years to have been a leader in the 84 community up here, and
Nice.
also to help mentor other teachers, in to lead the 84. So
Very
yeah.
cool.
If you want me
Amazing.
to tell, I can tell people what the 84 series is too. I don't know if it,
Great point. Let's not
yeah.
assume that anybody that you listening you might have no idea what that is. So please tell me a little bit of history behind the 84 Classic Asana series.
Well, it's the most magical series, I will say that. But it is the original 84 postures from Vishnu Ghosh. And the 26 postures, known as most people as Bikram Yoga, came from a set of 32 postures from a book called Yoga Cure by Vishnu Ghosh. And Vishnu Ghosh was Bikram's guru. And those 32 postures came from a complete set of 84 postures. Vishnu Ghosh is actually the brother of Paramahansa Yogananda, so most people are probably familiar with the autobiography of a yogi. And it's a really rich, full series. And a lot of Ghosh's students, they used to kind of take this on the road and do demonstrations across India. So they even went, Ghosh lineage is derived from Calcutta, and they would even go to like Mysore and kind of demonstrate to the other lineages down there as well. So they'd have kind of their yoga offs at the time. So it is but there is something, I could sit here and tell you all the technical details about it, but when you practice it, there's something very uniquely energetically different about the series, this kind of wholeness and completion about the series, that I think that even if you don't dive further into the 84, I think having that experience just like once or twice, I think can energetically shift people in a
Yeah.
huge way.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Absolutely. Great description. I appreciate all that info.
Yeah.
What do you so like, obviously people that are used to Bikram yoga and or where it's more commonly known as like 26 and 2 or hot yoga. And then, I think people doing the same pose twice tend to, get used to that routine. And then you go into something like where, like you're saying, the difference between 26 and then moving into the additional or going through the full 84 classic asana. What have you observed in leading those classes where the most growth comes from? Like, what are you witnessing your students?
Yeah.
Like, what kind of reactions do you feel from them?
Um, well, it's a smaller class, of course, because the higher you go up the mountain, the less people are up at the top. And it's not necessarily at the top, but it is a class about willingness. And it's 2 hours long. And it's usually at a time slot on the weekends when other people are going to be on their couch or just doing something else. So you have these people who are coming, they also drive. It's not available at every studio. So they actually drive, 30, 45 minutes to get to it. So there is a certain level of devotion towards it. And then also play. And we're all struggling together. So it creates this kind of deep intimacy and bond. And in order to become good at something new, you have to agree to suck for a while at it. Like you have to just suck for a while. And so if you're not willing to do that, if you're not willing to be vulnerable, then you'll never be great. So all these people who show up, they're willing to be vulnerable. The other challenge for me, though, is like introducing some of these classes, like the advanced class, the intermediate classes. I have to keep the standard here, even when I witness people struggling or suffering a little bit, because if I drop it, and I take away that struggle, then I weaken them. And so I have to keep it here so that they can rise up. And I'm like, I'm always willing to like put my hand out and like help people come up. But I can't lower it. And so it also expands as a teacher. I'm witnessing their struggle, and that creates discomfort in me. So it also expands my capacity to feel that discomfort inside of me and to allow it to simply be without needing to remove it.
Mm,
Um, because like some of the best teachers that I've ever had haven't removed the standard or the burden or the struggle, but just held that space and the vision for myself to rise up.
yeah.
Otherwise, they would have completely weakened me.
Yeah. Yeah. Good point. Great
Mhm.
points. I love it. The first time I got a chance to practice the 84 classic asanas was with Jimmy Barkin in Fort
Yeah,
Lauderdale.
yeah,
I started taking Bikram yoga classes in a town called Tequesta in Florida. And then I would drive down to Fort Lauderdale, which is about a hour and 15-minute drive away. And I remember the first time being so blown away because, obviously a lot of the poses in the 84 classic asanas are a little bit more exotic, right? Like legs behind the head, um, all sorts of interesting positions that until then, and I remember in that time period in like 2001, there was no internet element, there was no YouTube, there was no books you could get that even had pictures. At that point, Tony Sanchez hadn't really
yeah,
put his materials out. Maybe his poster was available. So I don't want to disrespect Tony. I don't remember what year.
mhm.
Actually, no, that's not true because he had those VHS tapes. Do you remember that? Did you ever see the old
Yeah,
Tony
there was like
Sanchez?
the I remember, yeah, that's like the
Yeah,
yellow and that was the same like in 2012, that was like the only kind of thing. I mean, 2001 is a little bit earlier, but yeah, I
same
ordered
deal,
those
right?
DVDs, stuff
Yeah.
like that to try and like figure
Yeah.
out.
You had to really work hard to find information. And then, like you said, the class really isn't offered readily in very many places. Like I would imagine in a place like Seattle, which is, I want to say, a little more hip in terms of like in relation to different parts of the country. Like you have a little bit of everything that you could want
There-
in places like Seattle and LA and that type of stuff. But for most of us out in the boondocks, there's really no way you would ever come in contact with the 84 Classic Asana series. So I
Mhm.
remember just being like, wow, this is something else. This is really powerful. That's cool. Can you tell me, you made mention earlier about a 2-year journey. Can you
Oh
talk
yeah.
a little bit about why you're feeling like it was such a journey?
Well, around December of 2021. So I've been also doing yoga asana championships since 2012. And I got divorced in 2018, 2019, and that was a huge shift in my world, brought up so many things for me to heal. And then around December 2021, I felt like I needed to leave Seattle. And still the pandemic was still kind of going on here. And it was hard. It was hard for me to leave because I felt like a big devotion and responsibility to the community here. So I did train a couple of their teachers who kept the 84 going. And I just felt like I needed to leave. So I put my stuff in storage. Well, prior, I was still debating. And then I said, God, give me some kind of sign. And I walked out of the yoga studio and I stepped on this piece of paper and it said adventure waits, go find it. And I was like, well, that's it. So I put my stuff in storage and I went first to my dad's in Utah, and I had promised myself I will never move back home when I was 18. And then here, lo and behold, I find myself moving back home. And I stayed with my dad in Utah for 6 months. And while I was there, like I think I needed to be held by the mountains there, like the rocks. And I did some pretty heavy letting go of some like really suppressed energy, like, and just really very focused by the safety of my dad's house to be able to kind of bring up these things, this suppressed energy that I didn't really feel comfortable releasing at the time. And then I found my way. Well, I had thought I was going to move to Tennessee. So I went to Tennessee, got there,
Which part?
Chattanooga,
Cool.
beautiful place. But I got there and I was like, had my cats, my Subaru full of stuff.
Mm.
And I was like, this was a mistake. And I was only there.
What did you say? This what?
This was a mistake.
Ah,
I got there and I was
didn't
like,
feel
this
it.
was
You
a
just did
mistake.
not feel it.
It was not. And so
Yeah.
I called my coach, Kim Tang, and I said, I was like, is there some, like, am I supposed to transmute this energy? Am I supposed to do, I was asking all the stuff around her. And she said, time to go, baby girl. And I drove all the way to Joshua Tree, California, and stayed with her at her retreat center. And this was just a few weeks before the national championships in 2022. And so my life had just like uh, all the cards gone up in the air. And then I found myself in Joshua Tree staying with her, which was a lovely experience. And so went to nationals, placed second in nationals. That was my first time ever medaling in nationals after 10 years of
Wow.
going for it.
Trying every year.
Yes,
Obviously,
yes.
maybe 2020 didn't happen, I'm guessing.
Oh no, 2020 didn't happen,
Yep.
but
Yep.
and I
Mm.
hadn't been invited to nationals until 2015.
Yeah.
So I started like last place in Washington and then wanted to work up into getting like, in the top three in Washington State. And then from there, getting an invitation to nationals. And then from there, being at nationals, then top 10 at nationals, and then medaling. And then eventually my goal all along was I want to go to internationals. So I stayed with Kim and we went to internationals. She helped me train. So I was with her for about 7 months. We went to Bangalore, India in December of 2022. And wow, that was an amazing experience. Maybe not what I wanted, but exactly what I needed. It shook
That's good
me
old
up,
India for you. Yeah.
shook me way up. And I so I placed third in the semifinals in the world championships.
Nice. Congratulations. That's
Yeah, and
good.
then in
That's
the
difficult.
finals, I went
Yeah.
all in and I fell out of my posture. So I knocked myself completely down. And it was super humbling for me, but also like exactly what I needed. But I was up there in like this hot pink leotard in front of, all these Indian spectators, just fall out of a posture. And like you have to go all in the risk.
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
Um,
Is
so
that
I
what
got,
you're alluding to when you say I didn't get what I want? It didn't go the way that I expected. I was expecting you to tell
yeah.
me like a dysentery story or like
Oh no.
I
No,
got horribly this or that, but more just the experience of the actual competition itself
well, yeah, the
was
actual
humbling.
you
Yeah.
invest your blood,
Yeah.
sweat, and tears into
Yes.
this for
Yes.
10
Yeah.
years. You breathe it, you obsess over it, you think about it, and you want to go up there and more than just like winning, you want to give your best.
Yeah.
And so when you fall out of posture, it can be very disheartening because you live for this moment. But I think the true character of somebody is like not what happens when you fall, it's what happens after you fall. And after I fall,
True.
I just like got back in and I finished off my routine and scored high on my last two postures with a smile on my face. And then ran off stage and cried behind the building, but that's the yogi moment right there. But I feel too that, I've failed and I've fallen like hundreds of times. And I think failure has only ever made me limitless. Meaning like if I had gotten what I wanted years ago, I wouldn't be the type of person or type of yogi or type of leader that I am today. It's been all those failures and those setbacks that's like given me the most medicine, the most discomfort. And in that discomfort, that's where our consciousness expands.
Yes.
And, I've seen a lot of people come and go who have maybe like natural talent or natural ability. And that's great. They get what they need from the championships, but you kind of crack this limit in yourself when you're forced to kind of sit with that discomfort inside of yourself. Um,
Yes.
yeah,
Well said, Jordan. I agree
yeah,
100%. That's
yeah.
cool. I mean, definitely when you have to work hard for something and I mean, obviously I'm sure you do have some natural ability, but at the same time, it sounds like you've also maybe not in comparison to some of the things we see when you get to that world level, you look and you go, oh my goodness, how am I going to go in this situation? These people are just like ridiculously talented and I'm just, who am I? Like, I don't have that really crazy natural ability, but then, like you said, to work so hard for that long and stay consistent and focused and not give up is just so rewarding. That's cool. I
Hmm.
love hearing that. I do have to ask you a couple questions just because I just want to see what you think about, was Bikram at the Bangalore World Championships?
No.
To what, thank you. I don't, to what
Yeah.
role does he get involved in any of the
Well, oh, sorry. Go ahead.
competition stuff?
Registry was involved, and
Ah,
it kind of feels like the most harmonious, like symbiotic, if that's the right word, thing that Rajastri was involved because Rajastri was a champion herself. And she's the one who's always kind of been very heavily involved in USA Yoga. And it was actually really beautiful to see how honored she was there in Bangalore. And so she was heavily involved. She kind of really helped to make this last championships happen because, with COVID, it went off track and there was a lot of people who participated in it. But Bikram hasn't been involved since the whole bubble burst, you
yeah,
know.
yeah.
And but Rajastri was, and I actually did get to travel with Rajastri um, to from Bangalore to Calcutta and go to Ghosh College. But it was really beautiful to see how well received she was, how honored. And we had this moment, I was still kind of a little in my feels and sad and disappointed, but still at peace at the end. And all the competitors were on stage, and the participants in the audience and the spectators in the audience sang the Indian national anthem to us, and it was like one of the most beautiful things that I'd ever experienced.
Wow.
So
That's so cool. I
I will
really,
say this though too, because
oh,
like,
tell me.
sorry, doing yoga competitions for 12 years now, I have gotten all sorts of comments about it. I have never gotten any pushback um, from any Indian yogi regarding yoga championships or yoga sport. So,
That's really cool to hear. I wanted to ask you about what type of criticisms you've heard. I remember I got involved in the yoga competitions when Bikram first started organizing them. My wife and I used to run the Bikram Yoga Studio in Mira Mesa in San Diego between 2002 and 2005. And so I would drive up to LA every week to take the advanced class, and with Bikram, and Jason was teaching, and Emmy Cleaves was teaching, and Rajastri would come in and practice, and so I would drive, which is a really not fun drive, by the way, driving from San Diego to LA back and forth. Like the traffic, if you miss it by like 5 minutes on the way home, like I'd be like, I have to be out at 1 o'clock. Cause if I get on the freeway at 1:07, it would be like, it'd take me 4 hours to get home. But um, the the pressure, like just to kind of paint a little bit of a picture, and this is obviously my personal experience. I would just like to hear what your feeling was, but it's a very high pressure environment, in my opinion, because it was like very competitive, like really competitive. Like, and then just to paint another little picture too, for those that don't know, like what does a competition look like? How do you even make yoga competition? The way that Bikram set it up was that it was, you do 5 poses that were all compulsory, and then you pick 2 advanced poses. It needs to be completed within, what's the time frame?
well, I don't know for but right now it's 3 minutes.
3 minutes. So you
Yeah.
have to complete these, and I'm right with 7 poses. Am I correct? 5 and 2.
Now it is, well, now it's good, a different format. It's six postures in 3 minutes, but they're not the same five postures and then two optionals. They've changed the format. It's gotten increased. They've changed the format like almost every year I've done it. It's gotten increasingly like the bars kept going
Being
up and
raised. Well,
mhm.
what is it now?
So you do six postures, 3 minutes. You have to hold in stillness for at least 5 seconds in complete expression of the pose. Um, and then there's you need to demonstrate a forward fold. So you have a choice of forward folds, meaning like the top forward fold is lifting tortoise. Then you have to do a traction posture, one of the top. So you can do like upward stretching, or one of the highest scoring traction postures is goodbye pose. You demonstrate a spine twist. So that highest scoring spine twist would be full spine twist. You do a lift. So that could be om, goodbye, peacocks. I do bow-legged peacock. And then an inversion. My inversion of choice is tiger scorpion. And then a back bend, and the back bend I usually do is full will.
Mm,
So
nice. Yeah.
it's gotten like increasingly like the bar's been like I did start with the old traditional format of
Mhm.
the five standard postures and then the two optionals. But yeah.
Gotcha. Nice. And it is very intense to get on stage. Like you said, I like the fact that you mentioned I was in a pink leotard in front of a because I remember getting up in my Speedo, which like for me to get into a Speedo when I was kind of pressured to do it, that was a big moment for me because I always grew up surfing and wearing board shorts. So if I wore a Speedo to the beach to go surfing, dude, there's
Mhm.
no way anyone would have put up with that, right? Like I would get heckled forever. So like to actually get into a Speedo and go into a yoga class, like that was a big moment for me. Like I had to really like it was, I don't know. Have you ever heard that from other guys? Do you ever what kind of
Well, I think well to
I know
paint
it's
the
silly. I know it's silly because it's just
no,
like
no,
whatever,
every
it's your body
every
and it's like a
other.
small little skimpy suit. But yeah.
Well, and with India, they had particular requirements for like how our leotards were supposed to be and stuff like that. But it was funny because in the top 10 for the women, it was like all of them were in black, and then me up there in this hot pink
Ah.
leotard, looking like a flamingo, falling out of my postures. Um, and
Why did you wear the pink? If did you do it consciously or did you
yes,
and you're
because
allowed to, right?
I
You can wear what?
I love the pink.
Yeah,
It made me very happy to wear it.
that's cool.
And I do think though, when I first started yoga and even the hot yoga, I would wear long pants and like a long sleeve shirt, and I felt very self-conscious. And
Yeah,
then you go in there and it's this kind of survival atmosphere.
yeah,
I feel like
yeah.
these pants are not helping me survive. This shirt's not helping me survive. And then you're forced to look at yourself in the mirror and you see yourself for 90 minutes. And you either like learn to really love what's in front of you or you decide you're going to change it. And so it's like this, I think it's even being up there in um a leotard and stuff, it's like this kind of radical form of self-acceptance, even though consciously and logically I know that I have like an amazing and beautiful body, I still have my own insecurities that are still like there and present. And you're choosing to say like, so what? I'm gonna do it anyway. And just kind of builds a lot of confidence in yourself in that capacity. I think
Good point.
uh, everybody should have the opportunity to do their own kind of championships. It doesn't need to be yoga championships, but something that really forces them outside of their comfort zone and has them adopt what I call like the champion mindset. Because I look at myself as a champion, and it doesn't mean that I'm a champion only when I'm on stage or standing on the X on stage or doing my routine. Like it's a mindset with which I use in my life to like overcome challenges. And I do have my moments where I fall victim to things and I'm like, I'm have enough. I'm tired of this. I can't do this. And then I center again and remind myself, like, no, you're a champion and a champion rises in consciousness. So pull yourself together and rise. And that's what you do.
That's
Um,
true. Yes. Well said.
I do want to talk about it being competitive.
Please.
Um, Because a lot of people have been like, well, there's no competition in yoga, all this kind of stuff. And I think there's this tendency to for us to kind of put this purity culture on yoga when yoga sport and yoga championships in their current form or have been around in India for almost 200 years, and they have different formats so it's very interesting because it's kind of a form of cultural misappropriation. And at the same time, it's not saying like it's yoga sport, not necessarily like yoga spirituality. We're not judging if somebody's more spiritual or not in that context. Um, and for a while, I used to just be like, oh, well, I'm just competitive with myself, which is true. But then I was like, I'm not actually being authentic and kind of owning the humanness of me and this experience, which is, yeah, I am competitive. If there's somebody in class who's working hard next to me, I'm going to work hard too. And owning that instead of like pushing it away, that makes us a much more like whole and authentic person than and I do think there's like this healthy type of competitiveness. And that is probably the precise reason why we all enjoy group practice,
Mhm.
because you have somebody to push you to become more limitless. And that's what we're all striving for. And some of my like biggest competition, like they're my friends because we understand each other on such a unique level of obsession and drive and focus. And I'm so grateful to them because they've only made me better. They've only made me better. You can be inspired by it or you can be defeated by it. And I choose to be inspired by it.
Nice.
Yeah.
So cool, Jordan. I'm excited to hear your take on it.
And
I was so curious. I was so excited to have this opportunity to speak with you because I don't often I haven't chatted on the podcast with other folks that have been involved in the competition. One thing that I remember feeling in coming out, I remember seeing after I went to the World's Championship or competition, and that was held in Los Angeles one year, and there was people afterward crying, you know, and just really upset, and based off of their performance. And I think for me personally, that was my turning point where I realized I think I'm good. Like that was really
Mhm.
cool. I got a lot out of it.
Mhm.
And I think I'm ready to just like not do this now. Have
Yeah.
you had any and I guess the reason I bring up the crime part is because when I saw people getting really upset
Mhm.
about their lack of performance and ability, and I witnessed in myself too, feeling like, oh, could have done
Mhm.
so much better. Could have done
Mhm.
that. It just made me turn a little bit of a corner. Have you had any of those feelings? And I don't know judge
Oh,
one way or the
yeah.
other, but I'm curious. What do you think?
Um, absolutely. Absolutely. I think after India, I got kind of disappointed and depressed and burnt out. So I actually stayed in the desert longer, and then I moved out to this little casita that was like down this dirt road, nobody around. I kind of wanted to just not be with anybody, and I just sat there, and there was a bush in front of my patio and these beautiful boulders and Joshua tree. And I just felt like Moses up there. I was just talking to the bush, talking to God, letting it all out, letting all this disappointment, this frustration, this depression out. But it's like the path of it, like it's a tool or a mechanism to become a new version of ourselves or new identity. And so when I no longer love it, when I feel like the desire has extinguished out, I'm not gonna keep going for it. I'm not gonna keep doing it. I never am forcing myself to do it. And so last year I did take a break. I took it off and I rested and I allowed myself to just like be in the desert and surrender to those feelings. And I don't think that I think that it's like this microcosmic of this human experience and being attached and learning to not be attached. And but allowing ourselves to feel it all, because that's exactly like why we're here, is to have that expand our capacity to feel everything, to free ourselves from it. And so for me, it's like been one of the biggest tools for expansion for me. Um, and particularly, so yeah, I was very attached towards it, and I had to learn afterwards that I'm okay no matter what. I even went through this period of like, do I even like yoga anymore and all this kind of stuff, and just completely losing myself for a while, and then rooting back into my wholeness, and then everything kind of coming back in again, and that passion reigniting, and oh, I love 84, and just returning back again to that. But it's that process, and it's that trusting of the process, and knowing that whatever is coming up, whatever I'm feeling, whether it's depression, disappointment, frustration, defeat, it is part of it. There's nothing wrong with it. That seed of desire that you throw down there, this is part of it, of that purification. And so in the desert, I felt like it was the way of the fire, it was the purification of myself. And so I think it's all exactly how it needs to be, and everybody's reactions, and um it needing it to be anything different. But at the end of the day, I just truly love it. And if I stop loving it, then I'll stop. Like,
Nice.
yeah.
Yeah. I like the way you processed it though, processed it. And I think that's really cool. It's also to like I was thinking that maybe it was like a little bit of a dark night of the soul sort of experience.
Yeah.
Like when you were saying like, do I even like yoga? Like what the heck am I
Yeah.
doing?
I mean, I've had quite a few long dark nights
You're
of the
like,
I will say the end of my marriage was probably like the absolute most excruciating thing I'd ever been through.
mm,
And um I think it was like that champion mindset and the stuff that you learn in Bikram that like actually pulled me out of that
yeah,
like, because
yeah, I
I knew
understand.
how to rise and root into myself and rise from that.
Yeah,
And yeah, so I did have a long dark night of the soul after the championships, but it was like it was just another layer to peel off in myself. So
yeah.
yeah.
Nice.
Mhm. Yeah.
Awesome. So many questions. Another one. How would you state the current Bikram yoga community? And then maybe I should preface, it seems like what I'm noticing that people are more affiliating themselves as a Bishnu Ghosh College of
Mhm.
India of 84 asanas. And so, which I agree with 100%. That makes perfect
Yeah,
sense.
yeah.
What are your thoughts?
Well, I do have a lot of thoughts on this. Are you ready for it?
Do you feel like you have to be diplomatic? I mean, don't you feel like we're gonna
No,
start treading down this
no,
path a
I
little that
actually don't
we
don't feel like I need to
okay.
be too
I don't
diplomatic.
and if I ask you something that you don't feel comfortable with, I know you'll tell me, no, thank you,
Yeah,
and we'll move on. But thank you. It sounds like you're ready to speak.
yeah, I'm ready for this. Um, so I think every Bikram practitioner, when everything came out in 2013, did have to grapple with some kind of like identification, or what does the yoga mean to me? And at that time, I'd only been practicing a year, but what I had experienced at the studio that I practiced at was just pure love, inclusion, and just like this rich, rewarding experience. I did have a student in class. I set it up. I made a joke about being a Bikram teacher and how it being a little bit harder to be liked. And they were like, well, Bikram was a rapist. And this is right in the middle of class, right at Savasana. And I'm like, whoa, okay, off balance a little bit. I took a second to take a deep breath. And I said, the shame of the guru is not the shame of the lineage or the shame of the community. And I think that's a really big, important distinguish thing to distinguish, because that is putting all of our power and investment in a man, in a person, in a human, instead of what we really need to be doing is like putting our power in ourselves and power in God, universe, source, whatever you want to call it, and returning back to ourselves. If people want to move on from the practice, or if they want to separate themselves from that, you do you. Like that's fine. I am comfortable using the term Bikram because it's like I don't need to, it's an integration of the truth of the history instead of just pretending that it never happened. Or so it's like kind of owning the truth of like where this came from. And in 84, I'll talk about Ghosh, I'll talk about Bikram, I'll talk about the lineage, I'll give them the whole history of even Seattle, where the 84's been, at which studio, which people have been the leaders of it, because it's important to know. And I think it's just like getting out our own discomfort to sit with kind of the paradox of things, which is like this rich, beautiful yoga that's given us so much. And then some of the more unsavory aspects, the more human aspects of it as well. But again, expanding our range and capacity to be able to hold it all, the light and the shadow, the pain and the joy, the grief and the love. So that's kind of like my thing, is like I will appropriate it to Ghosh. I'll introduce my 26 classes as Hatha 26, Ghosh, Bikram, whatever you want to call it. Like it's but I do think it's important for us to own our history, and also to know that the shame of a guru is not the shame of a lineage or shame of a community. And there's a fallen guru in almost every lineage. So it's a thing. I think it's something that each lineage has to grapple with at one point or another, which is the flaws of man. And how do we deal with that? How do we take responsibility, accountability as a community to protect, to not allow people to abuse their power, and then also to not throw away the medicine at the same time?
Mm.
I hope I answered that well.
Very well. I can't help but think that you're a gifted speaker. Like
Thank you.
you are
Yeah.
good. You can vocalize and verbalize what you're thinking very clearly and smoothly. So well done, Jordan. I really appreciate your perspective. That's so cool. And I think you're right. I agree with everything you said. I'd found a hard time with it personally. And
Mhm.
interestingly enough, when my wife and I were holding down the studio in here in Mesa, we started going, well, let's go to India. And we really wanted to practice Ashtanga with Patabi Joyce. And we went to Mysore and practiced with Patabi Joyce. And I remember just kind of coming from the Bikram world and just being like, oh, this is so heavy. Because I remember watching Bikram do stuff with people that I was like, something's not right here, man. Something's going to fall apart. This is not cool. Whatever he's doing, this doesn't feel right. And
Mhm.
but then there's been a whole blow up in the Ashtanga world. And so after I had double guru blow up, I thought, what do I, but I like the fact that I like that you're being so real about it. And I also like that you brought up the kind of cultural appropriation element of people saying like, competition, that's not spiritual. But interestingly enough, like when we look at even some of the festivals in India, like the really big ones, the Kumbh Mela. There's a lot of yogis there that are demonstrating their abilities, and they attract their followers by demonstrating their abilities. And so competition seems like it's been a part of yoga ever since the very beginning. I mean, so I think I like the fact that you're bringing to light that I'd be doing myself a disservice by not acknowledging that I do appreciate having somebody next to me that's also trying really hard. And it's when I'm trying really hard that they're inspiring me. It's not that I'm really trying to beat them or
Mhm.
prove to them that I'm better because I can hold it longer, I can straighten my leg more, or I can squeeze my quad while I straighten my leg or whatever. So I like
Mhm.
that you brought that distinction up in that department, and also the way that you're really loving the yoga. And also I like that you brought up the idea within the challenge of the class, because every time what will happen is like the 84 classic asanas is challenging, but if you water it down, I do appreciate that you're trying to hold the bar to a certain level for the benefit of the student so that the growth potential is still there, as opposed to just placating to the student's challenge in that moment in time. So all amazing points. I love it. Now, I noticed that I want to bring up two things that, I mean, the links are going to be in the description so everybody can click and follow you or find you. And your website is jordanlydiatarot.com. So when I went to your website, like first I kind of heard from your Seattle student that he kind of said like, wow, Jordan is like, you really got to talk to her because she's so focused and she's worked so hard and she's really dedicated teacher and practitioner. And so then when I went to your website to do a little research or find out about you, and then I saw you have a lot going on, and you also seem to be involved in like gentle yoga and or yin yoga and or
Mhm.
this element of tarot. So I would just want to ask you a couple, like, just find out like what else do you do?
Okay. Well, I mean,
I love, yeah.
I love playing with energy. I have actually been teaching yin yoga the longest, and I absolutely love yoga nidra. So I do have this whole other kind of like softer side as well, being silk, both strong and soft. And but recently, like I am really interested a lot in what I would call like remote energetic healing. And I've really been devoting myself to a lot of like accessing the subconscious mind, or I call it quantum field healing. And it's a technique that I do where if I get still enough, I can take my energy quantum field and access somebody else's quantum field and feel where there's constriction or pain in their body through my body, and also begin to kind of shift it. I think tarot is a very good tool as well because the visual representations are a little bit more tangible to people than just like talking about these like subtle energy things. And so it is all kind of this, they're all representations, I would say, of like one consciousness. And with yoga nidra, in particular, like working through the different koshas or layers of the body. And I love channeling that. I love having that come in as well. So there's a lot of different kind of experiences that I've had on the energetic side of things. And so it's how to really purify myself to be able to do that for other people more. And part of being in the desert was a lot of like nervous system regulation to be able to expand my capacity to be able to offer that for a larger community of people. Yeah.
Nice. Very cool. And
Mhm.
you're going to be leading a retreat in Joshua Tree soon. Is that true?
Well, that will be in the fall. It's called Limitless, and it will be 84 every day, and then also yin yoga every day. So part of championship training is that I have used yin yoga to open up my body in a lot of different ways. So it's not necessarily, yin yoga isn't necessarily an alignment based practice, but you can use it to create better alignment. So I had scoliosis in my spine. So I used like back bending to reshape my spine, and then my yin to realign my pelvic girdle. And I think the combination of the two is amazing, but I'm also open. I'm always open to any kind of new ways to open the body and create. I think what we're all moving towards is freedom. So that will be it. And it will also be a discussion of kind of limitless mindset. Like what is the mindset that you need, not need, can adapt in your life to be able to transform your life? Because it's not really about the yoga. It's not really about what happens on the mat. It's that cultivation of self that you learn on the mat that you then take outside to the rest of the world.
Yes. Can you
Mhm.
tell me what type of thoughts you've had spending time in Joshua Tree?
Oh, so many thoughts. Okay. The desert. The desert can be a very masculine, prickly place where people like it wants to protect itself. And the more that you try and protect yourself, the more the desert will pull from you. But when you surrender to the desert becomes very soft and open and expansive, and the sunsets are, this beautiful pink hue and oranges and purples. And the people there in Joshua Tree are they're people who I would say like maybe went had their soul go bankrupt in like a big city or something. So they're kind of looking to draw back into the earth, and they're really creative and artistic and just inspirational people all like put in one place. But I think this time spent in like the desert and with the little jackrabbits or seeing coyotes go by or the bush, like, and listening to the wind. And like, I just feel like the wind is like the breath of God in the desert. And you feel like, yes, the desert's so hot and extreme, but then God sends the wind down to cool you. And it's like this beautiful gift.
Ah,
I do have an appreciation of the desert.
isn't it
And then it was
amazing?
time to go too. And the
It's
desert let me know it was time to go.
ah,
So yeah.
I went out there last spring and I was taking my son to go see Joshua Tree. And I went up from like the west side. I entered in from the west side, not the 29 Palm side, but the other side. And the weather was horrible. It was raining. It was really just like a kind of like not very good visibility day. And so we were driving in. I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, this probably isn't the best day to do this, but I'm like, we got to do this. You got to see this. And so as we were driving through and we got a little bit further in, the clouds parted and the sun, and after it rained and the way the rain was glistening on all of those little cactus, or I know there's lots of cactus, but I can't remember what the names of the ones
The
are. But
yuccas.
yeah,
Yuccas,
it
yeah.
was just like the sun. It was like, oh my gosh,
Mhm, mhm, mhm.
so beautiful. It was just stunning. And I left there. When we left, I was like, I want to spend more time in Joshua Tree.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
I think everybody should live in the desert at least once in their life. It's almost like all of these sages, all of the like prophets and like Jesus, they all went and spent time in the desert. It's a place, what I say is it's a place where you go to empty yourself.
Mm,
And that's what I did. I had to empty myself. I had to lose everything while I was there and just empty, empty, empty. And then it just, all
nice,
that like love comes back into you.
nice.
So I feel like everybody should go live in the desert at least once in their life.
Yeah.
Hmm.
What does a day in your life look like in relation to your wake up schedule slash practice teach schedule slash anything else that you do? Like,
My
what time do you
goodness.
get started?
I get started around 6 a.m. I do have a corporate job. I work as a medical device industry. Um, since moving back to Seattle, I live 3 blocks from the Puget Sound. So I actually have been going and jumping in the water in the winter, cold plunging, swimming around for about, 10 to 15 minutes. And that is an amazing way to start the
Nice.
day.
Nice.
Then I, do my job. I will get a matcha throughout the day. Everybody knows I have a matcha. I call it my like witch's tea. And around like 4 o'clock, I finish up. And depending on the day, maybe I'm teaching. I usually do about an hour at least of stretching or some kind of training. Then maybe it can be myself teaching or taking a class. Last night I took 3 classes. And
You took 3 classes?
3 classes
Like
last night.
three hot yoga classes?
26 into a Gauche flow class. And then the last class was a African comedic yoga. If you've never tried African comedic yoga, energetically, that is just it's an amazing, you feel so regal and royal. So there's a plug for comedic yoga in there if you
Is this like
haven't.
an Egyptian
Yeah, so
yoga
the
technique?
concept between that is feeling that the yoga was actually derived from Egypt. And
Mm,
so the shapes are very, though there's kind of some similarities, but there's also very like the way like you put your hands, it's very geometrically, and so you feel this total alignment in your body and just the stability and regalness in your body as well. I also do some energy clearing for myself. And lately, I morning and night have been writing down my fears and resentments and asking God to help me release them. And asking, when I say God, I mean energy or universe, not necessarily particularly like a persona. And
like
help.
like a man with a beard. holding a Bible.
No, I also there's another. I also grew up Mormon, so I left a religion. So left a marriage, left a religion. Like I got a lot of big changes that I've gone through in my life. Um, and
That
then
is a big one, right? If you were indoctrinated into Mormon culture, it is kind of a big deal to become a yogini.
yes,
Does
it is.
do your parents frown upon this? Are they open and loving? That might be taking us sort of down a really windy road
Yeah.
because then we start talking about parents
Um,
and uh-oh, but
sorry, like both of my parents are still within the Mormon religion, but they love and accept me, but I think it also comes from the love and acceptance that I have shown myself.
yeah.
But it was, well, the point for me of decision is I felt like I was still going through the motions of religion. And then in 2013, I was in an 84 class, and I was like, why do I feel God here on my mat when I'm sweating? And I feel this connection here, but I don't feel God in church.
Mm,
And it was at that point that I made the decision to leave because I realized my heart wasn't all in. And I'm a woman who goes all in on whatever I'm doing. And so I needed to make that decision. But my parents have been both loving and accepting, but I think it's also a reflection of the love and acceptance I've had to cultivate with myself. And that's one of the things that I've worked very hard on is no longer self-rejecting
mm,
and really owning myself.
mm. Oh yeah, well said.
Hmm.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
It's making me think about maybe ways that maybe all I need to do is shift toward giving myself a little more love, and then I won't think that I'm doing something for somebody else. That makes sense.
Hmm.
That's
Hmm.
cool. Oh man, Jordan, I don't want our time to end. We're getting close to our hour. I want to
Yeah,
keep talking, but I want to be respectful of your time as well.
absolutely.
Do I feel like you bring so much to the plate here. I mean, giving us encouragement to like, even though we got to work hard, don't give up,
Yeah.
and a little more self-love and take time to go on retreat and
Hmm.
listen to nature. And is there anything else that you feel called to share before we exit?
Um, wow. Well, that was a, I feel like I,
Maybe not. Maybe like we hit it all.
I was gonna say something, which is I think competition
Mm,
is in is the order of nature. And to deny ourselves that like we aren't competitive is to deny nature. Like everything in nature is in competition. But that is okay. And I think it's about that thing externally is only a representation of something that you put internally. So it's not about overcoming the other person. It's about overcoming yourself, overcoming who you view yourself to be. And it can be in any area of your life, whether that be in romantic relationships, friendships, like work, health, finances, whatever it may be. It's just like this. We came here to overcome. We were in a state of bliss and bliss got boring. So we needed to shake it up. And so sometimes when I feel very frustrated or upset or sad or depressed, I put my hand on my heart and I say, like, I can be here for myself. I can stay here for myself. And I think it's about learning to not abandon ourselves. And that's what the Bikram yoga or cold plunges teaches you to do is to not abandon yourself to the external conditions and to stay with yourself. And when I feel like my mind wants to get out of a posture, but my body is okay, but my mind's ready to get out like a bat out of hell, I will just start to spell STAY, stay. And I think that's really what it is, especially in like a hot yoga, the Bikram yoga, you're staying with yourself, or even in a yin yoga posture. Those aren't necessarily easy. They can be very uncomfortable, and the time is creating this external condition for you to learn how to stay with yourself, to not abandon yourself at all. And I'm not saying to like push through when you're, but we all know that time when the mind just wants to leave, but the body's like, there's medicine here. Let's stay a little bit longer. So, um, yeah, it's
Perfect.
fun though. It's an adventure. Why not?
Yes. Oh
So,
man, Jordan, thank you so much. I really, as you were saying that, it reminded me reminded me, made me think of when I reached out to you via email. Your response was when I asked, would you be willing to be a guest on my show? You said, oh, my body says yes.
yeah,
Or something to that effect. And I've never had anybody respond like that in a way that was kind of cool because it made me think that you're listening to your body. Like what was the visceral reaction? And so you were like, yeah, I do. So I thought, oh, how cool is that? Yeah. I like that.
yeah,
Good
uh,
response.
yeah. Thank you. I think as movers or yogis, we make decisions with our body. And sometimes our mind is going to be anxious towards something and bring up all these fears and doubts and resistance. But when you get calm enough, your body already knows the decision. And I'm not saying that I don't think yoga is the path. Yoga is not the path of least resistance because you're actually going into resistance intentionally. You're putting yourself into resistance intentionally and then staying with yourself. But we all know deep in our body and connecting to that wisdom of our body the decisions that we should make, the directions that we should go. And yeah, I think when I moved back to Seattle, I was moving from Joshua Tree in October and going back into Seattle during the darkest time of the year in Seattle. And my mind was like, because I know with Seattle, I was like, what are you doing? Why are you leaving right now? Everybody's going to Joshua Tree right now, not to Seattle. Why are you doing that? But my body was like, you need to go. And I listened to that. And it's been a great decision for me.
Nice.
So my mind was like, but no, we can't do this. Body's like, we're going this direction fearlessly. So yeah, absolutely.
That's cool, Jordan. Thank you
Yeah.
so much for taking time to speak with me. And I'm so excited to have this opportunity. I can't wait to, I've never been to Seattle. If I do get a chance to get out there, I will find out where you're teaching and come take class. You
And
have such a great voice. I
and
think I can see, yeah,
we'll go swimming together too, and we'll go plunge.
I'm
So
slowly starting to get more and more into that. I
yeah.
know being a Florida person, that's a big challenge for me. But I was up in Michigan recently in the winter and I did jump in the lake there because I interviewed a guy over in Finland named Magnus Appelberg who goes in the freezing water every single day of the year, even in the middle of winter when it's like brutal in Finland. And I was like, okay, I think I can go in like if it's 40 degrees in Michigan, that's nothing compared to like sub-zero ice plunging. So I'm into and I've heard it's great for depression too. Like I hear it like does a great job for regulating the mood and just making you
Mhm.
feel good. So that sounds cool.
Mhm.
Awesome,
Thank
Jordan.
you so much.
I
I
will
appreciate it.
I really enjoyed this. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Until next time.